Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss A View to a Kill, starring Roger Moore, Christopher Walken, Tanya Roberts, Grace Jones, Patrick Macney, Patrick Balshaw, David Yip, and Fiona Fullerton, and directed by John Glenn. Let's just get into this movie right away, shall we? We start off in Antarctica, and then someone finds a dead body in the snow, and a bad guy shoots at him, which the scene was okay. I was okay with it for an action sequence. And do we see under the hood? Not for the longest time, but eventually we find out it's James Bond returned by Roger Moore, who is on a mission with a woman, and they smooch up, and this opening I was okay with, particularly since California Girl by the Beach Boys playing in the background. I was having fun, I guess. James with some people he works for, plus Moneypenny, spy on Max Zorin, played by Christopher Walken. Now, I'm not talking about the Zorin company that happened in around the 80s. I'm talking about the character that's played by Christopher Walken. In Mayday, played by Grace Jones, as they're on a horse racetrack, and their horse wins. And I love the shots of the horse racetrack. And I do like the scene as we find out about Max some more, and I enjoy Christopher Walken's presence in this movie. I like how Mayday figures out James is a spy, because it would be hard for me to spot a spy in general. James is on the spying mission for Max and finds Stacy Sutton, played by Tanya Roberts, who I only know from That 70s Show. And she pulls off the Bond girl very well in this movie, in my opinion. Max does find out eventually, as James' last name it was disguised to a different last name, but does find James's last name is Bond, and he's a spy, and his driver gets killed by Mayday, and I can't help but think of Grace Jones as a vampire. Maybe it's because I saw her originally in that movie Vamp from the 80s. And James does run off with his horse and gets caught by Max's henchmen. And this is the point in the movie that starts to die down for me, kind of. Because it starts to go by the plot slowly, and it kind of drags for me. As he makes a visit to California, James goes to a place that welcomes Max with open arms, and we find out Stacy works at the place, and next scene, James goes inside a place of Stacy's house and steps accidentally on a cat. And Max Zorin's men comes in and attacks James and Stacy and have a brief fight occurring, and it kicks the movie into a little gear. Stacy gets fired from her job, and they come up with a way to stop Max. And these scenes at the house is dragging a little bit. Max and Mayday find James and Stacy and shoot Stacy's former boss and get the elevator on fire, but they get out of there. How? Because no one can kill James Bond. And I've been having that problem starting with Dr. No. James and Stacy almost get arrested and have an unspectacular chase sequence, and they go to the construction of Max's, and it begins to collapse and get to drown, and James and Stacy and Mayday get left behind. Mayday ditches James while Stacy is outside, and eventually James gets out of the cave and flies with Max and Stacy and traps James on the Golden Gate Bridge. And Stacy attacks Max and jumps out, and James and Max have a fight that looks pretty stagey. But James wins, and Max is in the water, and the helicopter falls in the water. And that climax was odd to me. Like, it's not great. And the villain, it looks like he was going to live for the next movie. We'll find out in the other movies. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 4.4 out of 10. Roger Moore needs to retire the character for good. It got pretty good at first, but in the middle to the end, I wanted to move on at this point. And I had problems with the cliche of James Bond living because he's James Bond every single time, but it's not the worst Roger Moore / James Bond adventure. So I want to thank you guys for joining me, and next week I will be back with The Living Daylights. And until next time, the name's Bond. James Bond.